Across the vast forests and savannas in the rich lands of Africa, two African tribes competed for one of the most beautiful and fertile areas on Earth, the Ngorongoro Crater, known for its habitats, green lands, and abundant water. Battles occurred in various ways, and nature was used as a weapon in the fight, as the power of nature could be a strong and furious ally. Only the sound of wind and the rustling of leaves witnessed the calm moments that preceded the chaos. At a time when technology did not exist, natural resources were worth fighting for, and to control them, only one tribe could remain. At that time, the Datogos tribe, in their quest to dominate the Masai, resorted to a war tactic that would remain in memory for generations, where wild predatory animals were used as weapons of destruction. Lions and leopards, those majestic creatures that ruled the savannah, were turned into tools of mass destruction. They were captured, starved, and enraged, then released near enemy villages to devour anyone who crossed their path. Nevertheless, the Masai, the most famous tribe in Africa, continued to grow and flourish. Today, environmental reserves and non-governmental organizations near Ngorongoro preserve not only the local wildlife, but also the stories that made this land culturally rich thanks to the remnants of its deadly past. Returning to the thrilling events of that epic battle, the Ngorongoro Crater, with its towering edges and deep valleys, is one of Africa's greatest natural wonders. This volcanic caldera lies in northern Tanzania, not far from the Kenyan border, and is connected to the famous Serengeti region. It is a miniature model of wildlife and an ecosystem almost untouched by human hands. To understand the scale of the conflict that arose in this land during the 19th century, one must appreciate the geography of Ngorongoro, for it was ultimately what was being fought over. Formed around 2.5 million years ago due to a catastrophic event that forever shaped the region's landscape, the cone of a massive volcano collapsed after erupting. Thousands of years later, this place transformed into a stunning environment that is home to incredibly powerful animals. Forests cover the edges of the crater, while its interior consists of a mosaic of habitats, including vast grasslands, swamps, and rivers. Today, safari lovers visit the place as an escape from Africa's usual landscapes. Among the tribes that made the Ngorongoro Crater their home, two stood out due to their influence and power, the Masai and the Datogos. The Masai were known for their bravery and skills as cattle herders, as well as excellent warriors and trackers. They inhabited the rims and plains surrounding the crater. They lived in harmony with nature, revered cattle as a primary source of sustenance and a symbol of wealth, and their customs were deeply rooted in tradition, maintaining a symbiotic relationship with the land they inhabited. On the other hand, the Datogos had a culture of dominance. They were known for subjugating smaller tribes and merging their lands and resources. Their society was organized in a strict, quasi-military manner with a class system defining every individual's role, and harsh punishments for those who broke the rules. It is said that the Datogos were ruthless, and that some of them practiced cannibalism, a habit that terrified their neighbors and contributed to their fearsome reputation. This battle and historical event dates back to the early 19th century, between around 1801 and 1810, when the need for more natural resources and the search for fertile lands intensified intertribal conflicts. For many years prior, the Masai and Datogos lived in relative peace, separated by the vastness of the crater and its natural boundaries. But fate changed when a series of severe droughts forced both tribes to expand their territories in search of water and pasture. The first clash between the Masai and Datogos occurred during a time of extreme scarcity. The Masai, led by their chief, advanced toward the central regions of the crater, where the Datogos, under the command of a leader more like a general, had already established a presence and had no intention of sharing the space. Initially, the encounter between the two tribes was an attempt to negotiate. The Masai chief acknowledged the strength and fierceness of the Datogos and proposed a peace agreement to share the resources. However, the Datogos leader, confident in the superiority of his warriors, rejected the proposal, seeing the Masai's approach as an opportunity to expand his reach and strengthen his hold over the crater. Datogos warriors launched swift and brutal attacks on Masai villages, using guerrilla tactics to destabilize and weaken them. In response, the Masai, renowned for their combat prowess and unshakable courage, organized a series of defenses and counterattacks. But the situation quickly escalated and reached its peak in a direct confrontation between the two leaders. After failed negotiations, things spiraled out of control and culminated in a decisive battle on the banks of the contested river. Despite their bravery, the sheer force and numbers of the Datogos overwhelmed the Masai. Their chief was seriously injured, and the Masai were forced to retreat. However, the Datogos had no intention of returning to their territory. They pursued the fleeing population and then resorted to using the most terrifying predators in the savannah as weapons of death. Capturing and handling lions and leopards requires a mixture of courage, skill, and cruelty. The animals were taken to makeshift enclosures, closed huts located far from the tribe, isolated and hidden from Masai patrols. These enclosures were dark and cramped, built to restrict the animals' movements. Most were leopards, as confronting a pride of lions would have been madness. However, some young lions, recently separated from their prides and still honing their skills, were also included. The Datogos kept the predators captive for several days without food. The hunger growls echoed through the night, increasing the psychological terror among the native population, who were aware that these beasts were nearby. What made these predators even more vicious was a horrific tactic the Datogos used: feeding them small amounts of human flesh from victims in neighboring oppressed villages. This cruel method had a clear goal: to make the predators develop a taste for human meat. These animals had now become more savage than ever, ready to be wielded as weapons of terror the Datogos had planned to unleash on the Masai. At dawn, once the big cats were somewhat calmed, Datogos warriors led the blindfolded leopards to the outskirts of the Masai villages, tying trails of meat toward the villages focused on their daily routines. The horror that followed was inevitable. The first signs of the attack were the screams of the victims, mostly children enjoying their free time while adults worked in the fields. Even the elders were attacked. The Masai were caught off guard. When they heard the cries of their people, they rushed home, only to find the massacre had already occurred. Victims were seriously wounded, and some lost their lives. The Masai initially thought it was an accident, but upon examining the bodies of the predators, they noticed signs of captivity and realized that the horrific scene was orchestrated by their enemies. Anger began to fuel the hearts of the Masai, and the worst was yet to come. Though the Datogos' strategy was brutal and effective, the Masai realized they had to prepare to face a ruthless enemy, and they were ready. Their resilience could not be underestimated. So they began to devise a response to this unusual threat, fully aware of the need for effective defenses against lion and leopard attacks. The Masai developed a strategy that used nature itself for protection, inspired by the idea of using animals to divert the predator's attention. They began capturing herbivores like zebras and antelopes that were abundant in the region. These harmless animals were kept trapped along village paths to serve as bait for the hungry predators, effectively putting an end to the Datogos' vile plan. After being used as weapons, the starving predators continued participating in the intertribal conflict, attacking both the Masai and the Datogos. Despite their fear, the Datogos started to realize that their victory wouldn't come as easily as they had imagined. The battle for the Ngorongoro Crater intensified, and the fate of both tribes hung in a fierce struggle that defied the laws of nature. The Masai realized that to win, they could not rely solely on defense. They needed to take the fight into enemy territory and dismantle the Datogos base. With help from allied tribes, the Masai began planning a series of coordinated attacks on Datogos villages, using intelligence and terrain knowledge to their advantage. Thanks to their natural ability to move quickly across rugged lands, the Masai launched surprise midnight attacks on Datogos positions. Fleeing into the savannah was extremely dangerous, especially since lions were most active at night. Any unplanned escape could mean death at the paws of the king of the jungle. The Datogos village, once thought to be safe, was caught off guard. The Masai and their allied tribes proved ruthless in their pursuit of victory. The war reached its climax when the Masai managed to capture the Datogos chief. Surrounded and threatened, he revealed his selfish nature and ordered his warriors to surrender. The Masai ended their enemy's legacy, including their leader. As for the warriors who pledged to repent, they were given two choices: leave the Ngorongoro Crater or completely abandon their Togolese customs and either build a new culture or ally with a smaller tribe. Some left and some stayed. They did whatever it took to ensure the Masai victory would become a moment of great celebration, having overcome a massive threat and securing the survival of their people and culture. The battles left deep scars, and the price of victory was high. Many warriors fell, and villages were destroyed. The name Ngorongoro emerged from this turbulent period in honor of an elderly Maasai man who tended the cattle while the warriors fought for the village. Ngorongoro means cowbell in the Maasai language. Since cattle are considered a divine gift by the Masai, the name honored the man who cared for their most sacred asset while the young men were at war. Although the true origin of the name Ngorongoro remains uncertain, some believe it refers to the Masai warriors' battle cries as they charge the enemy. Today, only the Masai tribe remains in the Ngorongoro area, but their culture and way of life have significantly evolved. The old nomadic lifestyle and ancient traditions have given way to a more stable life, influenced by modern economic and social forces. Many Masai now live in permanent villages, their herding practices modernized, and they've joined conservation efforts to help protect the local wildlife. While the Ngorongoro Crater remains one of the most magnificent and beautiful places in Africa, the Masai continue to be its guardians, honoring the memories of their ancestors and ensuring the legacy of Ngorongoro lives on for future generations.